Hello everybody, I'm back with another video for you today, and I have a lot of new reveals for you. I didn't do a video for the past few days, been kind of waiting for all the reveals to come in so I can do a big analysis in one go for you. Quite a lot of interesting cards, nothing that I think will be too competitive shown just yet, probably saving the better stuff for later on in the reveals. But we do have some pretty interesting cards. Let's just jump into it. We've got Phooca here, which is an Ogroid, which will be relevant later in a few cards. Another kind of Neca Warrior type card. Thrive, Veil, 4 Strength, 5 Provisions, 1 Armor, and units played by your opponent also trigger this unit's Thrive ability. I'm presuming, it should work that both your units and the opponent's units trigger the Thrive. So, kind of like a Warship in Skellige, and potentially getting you similar value to that or more. You're going to be able to probably proc this every time, every turn. Seems like a pretty decent engine, pretty good Thrive unit. Definitely having the armor helps out quite a bit, can't be removed by 4 damage so easily. Neca Warrior isn't really seen play, but this definitely has more potential than a Neca Warrior. It's got that 2 point per turn engine potential. The downside is, that opponent proccing Thrive ability probably won't get you too much value overall, just because they can play around that, play their smaller units, and you're going to be activating it. It's already going to get quite big after a couple of turns, and then they're, unless they're playing a lot of big units, going to be kind of hard to find value there. So definitely a very interesting ability. This is one of my favorite bronzes actually on this expansion, just because so far that is. Just because it's a bit of a unique effect. Haven't seen a Thrive unit that could be activated by the opponent as well. And yeah, seems like it could be competitive, although kind of a grey area. Hard to say in reality. Next we have Cat Witcher. 4 for 5, so not great stats, but at the end of your turn, move self to other row and damage a random enemy on the opposite row by 1. With Adrenaline 4, damage it by 2 instead. So this is kind of another engine for movement scoia'tel. They're definitely pushing that archetype in this expansion. And this is not a bad attempt at it. Pretty decent engine if you're doing like engine overload with the sentries and maybe matrons and all that kind of stuff. Gonna put out so many movement threats that the opponent maybe won't be able to deal with all of them. And definitely having that adrenaline value at the end of the round is going to mean you're not missing out too much if you play this later on in the round. Play your other engines first. So I think it's not a bad card in those kind of decks. It's probably one of the best engines that the deck could actually have. Comparing it to something like Dryad Matron, it's just kind of better than that in a movement deck. So this definitely could see some play, I think. Movement's being pushed, and I could definitely imagine a movement-focused archetype being pretty okay. Maybe there needs to be another card or two like Dol Blathana Sentry that's maybe a bit better than that. But if that's introduced, then this archetype could definitely be good. And even if it's not, I think you can definitely give it a go, and it'll be somewhat playable with this kind of card and Brehen and stuff like that potentially. Okay, next up we have Viper Witcher Adept for Nilfgaard. 3 Strength, 4 Provisions at the end of your turn, boost self by 1 if opponent has more cards in the deck than you. So kind of like a, I guess like a Magni Division comes down immediately, goes to 4 Strength if the opponent has more cards in deck. So not viable with Mill, only viable with, playing maybe Coated Weapons or, Viper Witchers, whatever. Just anything that kind of works with, putting stuff in the opponent's deck, or even hyper-thinning your own deck. People have been saying, I'll play this with Portal, Viper Witcher Adept comes out, big engines, thinning, etc. Not a bad combo, but not super game-breaking either. Portal has been very much power-crept out of the meta, so I'd be surprised if Portal decks are super strong, but this is a pretty good target for Portal, it must be said. And that's a good way to kind of get it activated straight away. Otherwise you can maybe just do it by thinning a card first, or putting something on the opponent's deck first and then going with this guy. But yeah, you want some way to maybe reliably play this. I suppose you can save it for later on. It can be like a round 2 or 3 play as well and not be too bad. Yeah, just a little bit of support for those kind of, you know, deck manipulation decks, but not mill, unfortunately. So yeah, not a bad card. Witcher Student, this is just a doomed token 2 strength, so we'll get to see kind of what spawning, you know, what cards spawn this little token. We've got Spontaneous Evolution here. This is it's a bit small, so I'll zoom in a little bit there. It's a 5 provision monster special. Boost an allied unit by 4 and gain an additional effect based on the category of that unit. So if it's an insectoid, you spawn 3 drones, the 1 strength, you know, drones, on boosted units row. If it's a beast, you boost it by 8 instead of 4. And if it's an ogroid, you give all ogroids in your hand 2 armor. Interesting effect, very cool card design. I like that it, you know, is dependent on what category you're boosting. That's something that very few cards interact with, so it's nice to see that being a thing. Also, ogroid support is quite funny. Beasts as well. Do I see this being too valuable? I mean, it's definitely pretty good on beasts. That's kind of working like an adrenaline rush, and it's organic, of course. And then you've got some flexibility on maybe insectoids. Ogroids, not going to be too useful giving them armor. You can give Neckers armor, but giving Neckers armor only gives one of them armor, because it spawns base copy, so it's not super valuable, and you only get 4 points for a 5 provision card, so I'm not sure that would be too good. Maybe with Ice Troll, I guess, is the best use, if you're playing an uninteractive unitless deck. But again, it's not a great value for a 5 provision card these days. If you're, you know, getting 4 and some kind of niche armor value, that's not really good. You'd rather play like a Troubadour or something. So unfortunately, this effect isn't great. If it was like give all units in your ogroid units in your hand plus like 2 strength, then it's a different story. That's then maybe a very powerful card. But 2 armor, not so sure. So kind of a bit of a niche card here. I think you could maybe fit this in decks where you're playing beasts, where you have rats maybe, and you would normally run Adrenaline Rush, or probably in some kind of organic heavy deck with the drones. This is definitely good with like a Glusty Warp probably, and yeah, definitely probably. Yeah, it's an okay card, but I think it's quite niche and won't see play in a lot of monster decks. Next we've got Target Practice. This is 4 provision special for Northern Realms, Warfare. Boost an allied unit by 4. If there's a Witcher on the boosted units row, also spawn Witcher Student. So 6 or 4 if you have a Witcher. Of course, this is synergizing with the Griffin Witcher Adept, which, if you aren't aware, is 4 strength, and, you know, is able to basically transform allied Witchers into that same 4 strength unit. So can gain 2 points per turn, Engine, if you can make a lot of Witcher Students. But this card in combination with that is not very good. I mean, it's a 6 or 4, so you don't really get that much, and I mean, it's okay, but I don't think you're going to build a deck around those 2 cards, this and Griffin Witcher Adept. Not very reliable, and, you know, it's okay value, but it's not like anything mind-blowing, I don't think. Definitely, if there are a few more of these Witcher Student spawning cards, or just more ways to get the low strength Witchers, you're then starting to think that Griffin Witcher Adept might be viable with the Target Practice and stuff. But I think with only those 2 cards, that's not really going to be a combo that you play too often. And it being Warfare, I don't think that's too relevant either. So yeah, as things stand, still not super amazing, not super OP or anything, but could be playable if there's more Witcher guys, I guess. Next we've got Bear Witcher Adept. This is a Skellige card. 7 for 4. Deploy, damage self by 4 at the end of your turn, heal self by 1, and while not damaged, gain 1 armor instead. So nice little engine, getting up to 7 strength quite nicely, and then just armoring up after that, not going crazy. Tool, I think this card's pretty decent, comes down at 4 strength. You've got ways you can instantly heal it, I suppose, if you really wanted to. It's going to fit in a lot of decks that sort of damage with priests, that Gideoneth deck that I was playing earlier this patch, and which is quite popular, I think. Could be pretty strong with Bear Witch or Adept, maybe. It does have some anti-synergy with the heal, because it wants to heal itself rather than get healed by Battle Trance, so that's worth thinking about. But yeah, this seems like a pretty good 4 provision card. Like, this is probably one of the best bronzes we've seen, I want to say. Skellige bronzes in general are very good though, so not even sure this will be played. I guess it probably will be, but yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But I don't think it's saying much, because I think a lot of the bronzes have been pretty weak and underwhelming so far that they've shown. So this is kind of just a good one. You know, should be 7 for 4 or getting removed, which is decent on a 4P. That's just good these days. So wouldn't be surprised to see this one played. Probably one of the better cards revealed so far for 4 drops. You know, bronze cards in general. Not too much more to say about that. And lastly, we have Armor Up, which is a 5 provision raid card for Skellige. Damage an enemy unit by 2, spawn 3 Witcher units, Witcher students, I should say, on the opposite row, damage them by 1 and give them 1 armor. So you get 3 1 strength damaged 1 armor units, plus 2 damage, so 5 for 5 initially. You have to then have some way to benefit from the heals. I guess the obvious synergy here is the Bear Witcher Mentor at 5 provisions as well. You know, you can boost him up for every damaged unit you have. That's not a terrible combo, but yeah, that alone I don't think is super good. You can look at this kind of like Spawn Volunteers card, you know, whatever it's called, Smoke Them Out in Northern Realm. It's kind of similar value probably. Kind of a bit harder to get the value, I would say, than Smoke Them Out. You have to definitely build your deck around this card if you're going to make that work and try to get a lot of self-damage synergy going. Don't think that'll be very strong, honestly, unless there's more cards like this that are giving you many units which are damaged. If that's the case, then I could see that with Bear Witcher Mentor being an okay combo, especially to secure your round 1s and whatnot. But currently, it's a bit hard to fit in any particular list. I don't think you'd play this in Warriors. Don't think you'd play it in Gedeneth or, like, you know, Battle Trance. And yeah, don't really see you getting the value a lot of the time. Even if you play this with Fulminica, you've got to remember you're going to get 8 points if you can heal all these guys, which isn't bad for a 5 provision card. It isn't bad, so maybe there's some some potential there. But yeah, so far we've got, you know, a couple of possibly playable bronzes shown here, and yeah, a lot of bronze cards. We'll see if we get some more powerful golds. Definitely, I think the first sort of few reveals they gave us were the most powerful cards and the most, you know, the ones with the most potential. So hopefully we'll get some more down the line, because currently, you know, not too... I don't think the meta will be changed a huge amount with just these cards, but of course there's a lot to come still, so we'll see what impact those guys have. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. I'm always interested to read those comments. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Do subscribe if you haven't already for more card reveals, and of course, wonderful gameplay once the patch actually drops. I might play before then, but probably not, to be honest. We'll see. Either way, thank you a lot, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.